Okay guys, today I'm planning to build a simple file manager, and I'm gonna do this in front of you. So I'm gonna start by creating a branch which I already created in my Git, just for any case. Let me check the status, and if I like it, I'm gonna merge it to my master branch, and after that push to Git repository. Okay, so what I want to do is allow my users to upload files, view them, download, delete files. Each one of the users will have a separate folder. I'm not gonna use a database for this purpose because I have to synchronize the files which have been uploaded and the database. I don't like this very much, and on top of that I want the file manager to be really very simple. As I said, and I'm not gonna use a table into the database. Okay, first things first, what we have to do is, as usual, start by creating a module. Gonna call this module CSN File Manager. By the way, I want to mention that we have built with 15 students modules based on these tutorials, which can be found in GitHub CoolCSN. So our vendor is CoolCSN, and all our modules start with CSN, Creative Solution Network, and also they are installable through Packagist, through Composer actually. They can be found in Packagist. If you wonder why I didn't create so long tutorials, this was the reason. I was concentrated on creating tutorials on Bulgarian for these students because I wanted to build the modules based on the tutorials. Now I'm starting to translate everything in English, so you will be able to see how actually these tutorials can be used to build your own modules, or you can use our pre-built modules. But I want everybody to know how the module have been built so can participate. Okay, let's get back. I just created a module folder, CSN File Manager. Now as usual I'm gonna create a file called module.php. Gonna open this in my IDE, in this case Notepad++, and I'm creating the standard class called module, and the most important, the namespace called CSN File Manager. Okay, that's enough to create a module. Now we have to inform our application that we just created a module and make sure that everything works. My project has a virtual host as usual, which is on port 10122, if I'm not mistaken. I think so. I'm gonna do something very important. Our application in FMI, in GitHub FMI, has grown to the point when we have authorization, authentication. So first I'm gonna log out here, and after that I'm gonna show you that I will log in, because otherwise I cannot control the access to my newly created file manager. I don't want guests to come and mess with my files and with the files of my members. That's why only the guys which I know, only registered users, can have access to the file manager. Okay, so we are ready. Now FMI project, I reordered everything. Config application, config PHP. Gonna inform my application that I have a newly created module which is called CSN File Manager. Put a comma This I see is common practice, or as they call it, the best practices, one of the best practices to put comma even after the last element in an array. That's not acceptable in JavaScript, but in PHP, as you can see, it's acceptable. CSN file manager, just let me make sure. Namespace CSN file manager module. Okay, let's see if our application still works. No, we didn't break anything, so let's continue. Let's stay on the front page for now. As you can see, the application has a navigation as well. I'm having tutorials about all these things, so don't worry. Step by step you'll see how everything is created. Okay, now let's continue with building our module. By the way, as usual, I'm gonna help myself and gonna use files which I have already created just to save time. Now the next thing is just to add the two trivial methods, which are getConfig and autoloaderConfig. I'm gonna use files, as I said, which I have created up front. Once we mention config folder, we have to create this folder. Let's create the source folder as well. Okay. Now let me get back to my modules, CSN file manager, and I will create the config folder, source folder. That's trivial stuff, which probably you very well know. I just want to make sure I mention everything for the novice. Module config.php, and I'm sure that I also will not remember what I did, let's say 2 months after creating this tutorial, so that's why I want to be explicit to explain everything in details. Return array. That's all my module config will do right now. Will return one array config. I will build a structure here, as usual, following the PSR rules. I'm creating here a folder with the same name as the name of my module. I will have controller. It's a singular controller. I will have form. Let's build the file structure. View. In the root of my module, and this in the view, of course, I have to have another folder following the Zend framework 2 rules, but this time with dashes between the words. CSN file manager. I just will create one controller index. Okay, so far so good. Let's try now and make sure that our module still works, our application still works actually, not our module, including the modules, the module of course. I will close application config, I don't need it anymore. Yeah, it still works. Everything is fine. Let's continue now creating the config file, controller, and the view scripts, and after that we'll try again and see what's going on. Okay, our configuration file now. Let's think about it. I'm gonna copy my config file, paste it, and explain what I have done here. Those are trivial stuff, as I said. Namespace again, I have to put here CSN file manager in my module config file. controllers, I'm planning to have one controller which is called index controller and have inside actions which reflect all the actions I want to do in my file manager, and this is going to be index, which will display all my files in a given folder, in the folder of the user. Planning to have download, upload. Of course, first I have to mention upload action, which will allow me to upload files, and I have to mention that in this tutorial I will restrict the uploaded files only to images. I don't want to allow my users to upload any kind of files, just images, and I'm going to show you also how to restrict the file size, the size of the images itself, and the type, the MIME type, MIME type of files. And also I want to download the files. I want to show you some tricks, so that's why I'm going to do view and get, and of course delete. So this is all I'm planning to do right now. This is the controller I marked already. I mentioned all the actions I want to be able to do. Let's define the router now. The roots. I'm going to call the root CSN file manager with dashes. It's a literal root. And if I type only CSN file manager, I want to get to my controller index action. Here it is, my index action. Okay, after that I will have child roots. The first one I'm going to call default as usual. So if somebody types CSN file manager and continues typing by putting a slash, the next thing he types I will accept as the name of the controller. If he types slash and types and continue typing, I will accept that the next thing would be the action, and finally this would be the ID. For ID I'm gonna use the file names URL encoded. I'm gonna show you a lot of interesting techniques. After that, the trivial thing about the view manager and telling the view manager where are my view scripts for the actions. Display exceptions true. I want to see the exceptions, and I do a little bit settings about doctrine, which I'm not gonna use in this module, but I wasn't sure, maybe this module will progress and I'm gonna use the database as well to store the location of the files in the file system. So that's why, just for any case, I'm setting up my doctrine, just for any case. As I said, I'm not gonna use it right now in this tutorial, so you don't have to do that if you don't like. Okay, that's it about the config file. Let's try if that works right now. Yeah, it's still working. Let's continue creating our controller. Let's create actually our controller, which doesn't exist yet. So index controller .php. I'm gonna change this O to the proper one, small o. Okay, once I have created the module config, actually I'm gonna close this file. I don't need it anymore. The same with the module. Everything is done in the module. Let's continue with the index controller. As I said, I will help myself by using a files which I have already created. Index controller, I'm just gonna copy and paste. Okay, I'm gonna copy these 3 lines, and I'm explaining right now the purpose of the lines. This is the namespace as usual, and this is absolutely necessary to be able to create a controller, because I'm gonna inherit abstract action controller. I'm gonna return objects of class view model for the view, so that's why I need that. Class index controller. And as I said, I'm planning to have few actions. Let's create them. First of them is init. Okay. Init action is gonna be used everywhere. So I'm gonna use init action. Init action I need just to create, if it's not created, the folder of the user, or just to set up the proper path to the folder where I have to manage the files. Index action, as I said, is gonna display all the files in my folder, in the folder of the member of the system. So index action, after that I have upload action. This is gonna play, if you like, the create role if we're talking in terms of CRUD. Upload action, download action, as you can guess. Here I have more actions, so that's why I'm gonna move further. Download action. All these actions we're gonna create and I'm gonna explain in detail, so don't worry if you see something more in the file which I have prepared already. Upload, download, I'm just following my controller which I have created up front, not to forget something. Delete action. Okay. Index, upload, download action, delete action. Let's return the object which the view expects. Return, return, return. In init we are gonna do different things, so I'm gonna leave it empty right now. It's not an action, of course. Download action, view, delete, upload, index, upload, download action, delete action. Okay, I'm not gonna put comments right now to save a little bit time. Let's create, of course, the view scripts right now for all our actions. View, CSN file manager, index. This correlates with the name of the controller. Index controller. And inside, for each one of the actions, I'm creating right now a view script. As I said, I already created that. I have this file manager functioning. So all I'm gonna do is just copy the view scripts, show it to you, and continue further. Index action. Okay. Because of my layout, which is not very good, it's the standard Bootstrap, Twitter Bootstrap layout, and sometimes, because right now I have a navigation, sometimes the navigation becomes thicker, this bar is bigger, so that's why I put it here BR, 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 just to push everything down to be seen. Otherwise it stays behind the bigger bar. When I log in I will show you what I mean. So now title my files, this head title, so we will have the same head title, escape HTML, and I'm again the title. Preparing right now the upload. I'm gonna show all my files in the table, and the actions which I want to have are get, view, download, and delete. I'll explain you what get is right now, and after that you'll see what I mean by that. Okay, right now my files will be in a folder which is not visible for Apache. Apache document root is only my public folder. So my pictures, my files, will be in a different folder which is hidden for everyone. If I want to show this image, one way to do it is just to load the file from the file system and write this in the standard output of PHP, prepare the headers for the Apache, and as I said, write the file to the output. This is one way to do it. View file, you can guess of course what is view, but I'm gonna show you an interesting technique when the code of the image actually is embedded into the HTML code. It's a very interesting technique. For example, if you have a 10,000, not 10,000 of course, it's too much, but if you have hundreds of pictures on one HTML page, each one, when the image gets loaded, actually there is a round trip back to the server, handshaking, exchanging the cookies, headers, and Apache is starting a new thread for each one of these images. So imagine one file, HTML file, which consists, which contains 100 images, will require from the server more than 100 threads. Just to save time and just use one thread, we can embed the images entirely into the HTML. So it's gonna be one round trip to the server and downloading the entire page. I'm gonna show you that. As I said, you'll see what I mean. Download, you can guess. When you click on the image, which is in a public folder in our browser, in our web server actually, not in our browser, you will see the image. I want to show you a technique. This is done by changing the headers when you can download the image. Of course, once you have the image in your browser, you can hit save and save it, but this is interesting to know, and at the end delete. Okay, so this is what I'm planning to do. Excuse me. So let's prepare the rest of the view scripts. I said we'll have upload, and I'm gonna use HTML5 multiple upload. So that's why in my examples I have upload multi. I'm gonna rename it right now to upload file upload multi. I'm gonna leave it just file upload like that. Showing you the form. Echo this form. I'm cleaning at the same time. Okay, so as you can guess, I will have a form for uploading the file. Sorry, coughing a little bit. So open tag, I will display the element for uploading the files for multiple files and submit. Don't worry if your browser doesn't support, or the browser of the user of the system doesn't support HTML5. Only one file will be uploaded at once if the browser doesn't support it. Zend is very smart. Okay. Actually, upload, I'm gonna do that. Upload, download, there is nothing special in download, you'll see that. Just download PHTML because nothing is gonna be shown to the user, and delete, of course. I'm not sure I have download delete because I don't really need it. We don't really need that, but just to make sure that everything works, I'll have it. Okay, now in the beginning, just to make this work, now I'm gonna change a little bit my index controller. Here, as you can see, in the index action, I'm expecting files. Index action. Look at here, files. So I'm going to return one empty array because this is what actually we're expecting. Array upload action, I'm expecting a form. This I cannot simulate very easy, so probably I'm gonna remove all this and just keep the titles. Skip title, temp file. Yeah, I'm gonna remove this just to show you how everything works. Download, delete. So that's it now. You can copy the code, of course, from FMI Wingman 007 FMI repository. Okay, let's see now if we can access our actions. I'll try that. If you remember, the name of the root is CSN file manager, and if I type this, should be enough. Uncat exception resource CSN file manager blah blah not defined in, notice this, authorize module. Each time when you try, that's normal, I expected this error, so each time when you try to get to a controller and the action, there is a CSN authorization module which plays its role. It stays in front of us and asks, okay, router, where are you trying to get? Okay, I'm trying to get to the controller CSN file manager, to the module CSN file manager, to the index controller, and to action index. After that, the router asks, okay, do we know this user? This is authentication service. No, we don't know this user. Okay, my assumption then is that this is a guest. And after that, the authorization module, which as I said I'm going to show you how to build, asks the access control list. Do we know, actually not do we know, it asks the access control list, is the role guest allowed to access the resource CSN file manager controller index? And if the answer is yes, and the privilege of course is index and execute the index action, if the answer is yes, then the authorization will allow us to get there. Right now our authorization in the ACL knows that we don't have such resource, and that's why it throws this exception. Okay, so now we have to work a little bit. Each time when you create a new module, a new controller, in the authorization, you have to inform the ACL about that. You have to describe actually in the ACL. You're not informing the authorization, you're just adding this to the ACL. Okay, we're gonna go here, and we have to do, of course, a little bit more configuration now. So ACL global. In this file, we describe the resources and the roles. As you can see, we have guest, member, and admin as roles. Now we have to describe here which role has access to our newly created controller, which is gonna play the role of the resource, and the actions will play the role of the privilege. This is very important. Okay, as I said, I'm going ahead of myself right now because all these modules have been built, and I'm gonna show you the English tutorials about that. Just remember, you have to do this tutorial. Probably I will move at the end of the playlist when all our modules are described, how they have been built. Okay, just to avoid mistakes, I'm gonna copy my config of the ACL from something which I already prepared for myself. Okay, it's very simple. You just have to remember that each time when you create a module and a controller, you have to describe the access rights to this controller and its actions. So now we have extra steps. Each time when we create a module, we have to inform the application about its existence. Each time when we do that, we also have to go to the access control list and describe who has access to different actions in this controller. In this case, notice this. Only the members will have access to all actions of the resource CSN File Manager Controller Index. And that's enough for now. Let's see now if we can get to this controller. Notice something. Right now, because I'm not logged into this system, I'm unknown. So the authorization module will accept that I'm a guest. The guest doesn't have access to any action, as you can see. So let's try again and see what happens. Now we're not getting errors. The exceptions are not thrown. But as you can see, I get redirected back to the home page. No matter how hard I try to get to this controller, that's actually a very good thing, I cannot get to any action. File Manager. And as I said, don't worry. I have explained already how to do this in Bulgarian. I'm just translating this within the next days. I'm going to show you how the authorization works. I think the authentication and authorization lies in the heart of every application, especially Zend Framework 2. Because this way you have control of the access. This way you can build a real application. Okay, now it's obvious that as a guest, the authorization will not allow me to get to my controller and index. That's why I have to log in, and I have one registered user which is called Stoyan, and the password is password. And on top of that, I'll say remember me, because I don't want to log in again eventually if I close the browser by mistake. So log in. Now this is what I was talking about. I have created a navigation. This also I'm gonna explain you how to do it. I did it in Bulgarian already, I just will translate it. So because the navigation looks like that, as you can see, part of my form gets hidden and I cannot access it. So that's why I'm pushing a little bit in every view script a little bit the elements I want to show. Okay, now let's try again to get to our CSN File Manager. And here we go. I'm at the index action. If you remember, in our module configuration we say that if we type only, this is the literal route, if I type only CSN File Manager, I will get to index controller index action. Okay, that's it. Let's try some of the actions. For example, index controller, and I'm gonna try download. Here we go. I'm there. As I said, it's hidden behind, so that's why I don't see it. Download, upload. Not gonna demonstrate right now that if I change the privileges here and say guest, I will be able to access the actions, but why not? Let's say I will say okay, I'm allowing the guests right now to get to my actions and to my controller. Yes, look at now. The authorization module will allow me to do that. Login, I will log out, I'll do logout. Right now you can see by not having so many menu items that you are unknown right now, not logged in also here. So let's try again. After changing the rules in the access control list, you can see how easy it is to control the access now. CSN File Manager, See, I'm getting there. Okay, let's not waste more time. I just want members to be able to get there. As I said, this entire story I'm gonna tell you a little bit later. Or if I reorder the videos, you've probably already seen them. So login, again, Stoyan, password, remember me, login, I'm in, getting to my controller again, CSN file manager, my files. Okay, let's continue further now. Okay, now we are almost done. The next thing is we're asking ourselves where to save the files of the users. Okay, so I decided to save the files of the users in a folder called uploads in a data folder. Let me compare this with what I have done already just to make sure that everything is fine. Yep, uploads, and what I'm gonna do is actually for each one of the members I'm creating here a subfolder, and I'm naming the subfolders after the IDE, unique IDE taken from the database of the member. For example, Stoyan, I know, has the IDE 54. So I want my file manager to create for each one of the members subfolder with the name which matches the ID of this member, and inside I want the files of the members. Right now with this simple file manager I'm not gonna allow them to create folders into this subfolder. All I want is just to allow them to upload pictures, image files, and manage them. That's all. This tutorial very easily can be adapted and changed to suit your needs. This is, as I said, again, a simple file manager which is gonna show you the concepts and you can use it all over the place, everywhere. Okay, let's delete this subfolder right now. This is the business of the file manager. It's gonna be delegated to create actually this subfolders of each one of the members. Uploads, as I said, uploads, just to make sure everything is right. Of course I'm gonna create a gitignore file, as you can guess, because I don't want to push the uploaded files to the repo. And gitignore has only uploads. Let me show you that. Git status now. See, it shows me here that a new ignore file has been created. Data gitignore. Module CSN file manager, and it shows me that application config has been changed and the ACL global also has been changed, and that's true, we have changed them. Okay, let's continue further. Okay, now we decided that we are gonna use this folder to contain the files of our members, the subfolders and their files. But how our file manager will know about that? Very simple, we'll go and configure our file manager. For this reason we're gonna create a configuration file for our file manager. Autoload, and I'm gonna call it file manager local. I will let each one of the developers to decide where to put this file structure, this file system. Okay, this is the simple configuration. I decided to use a key called file_manager array, and here I'm telling my file manager where is the folder, the root folder, which contains all the subfolders of each one of the individual members, and each of this folder will contain its files. And I'm giving here the full path. See documents and settings, user FMI data uploads. Of course, this way everybody who is using the module will be able to set up that and choose a different folder if he likes that. Okay, so this gives us the flexibility. We are ready with the configuration of our file manager. Let's continue building it. Module. In our module, I'm gonna minimize that, or first I'm gonna go to the module because I may need something from there. CSN file manager, source, CSN file manager, controller. Okay, let's display all the files in one of the users directory. Okay. Here I want to see first the files which are in my subfolder. As I said, I know the ID of Stoyan, password, I know it's 54, so I can create manually 54. I can show you this in the database, but I hope you trust me. Okay, so let's see how can we do that. How can we display first? And of course, first we have to inform our module where to go and look at our action in our index action. So that's why, as I said, I have created this init action. In the Zend framework 1, init method in the controller have been executed automatically each time. This is some kind of a implementation of the observer design pattern. Here in Zend framework 2, it's not like that. So here it is, my init action. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna prepare one member variable in which I'm gonna keep the path to my folder where I keep all the files of the members. And as usual, I have to call the service locator to get to the service manager. After that, I'm getting the config array, file manager dir, directory of the file manager, config, and I'm taking, as you can see here from the configuration, the directory. Oops, sorry. And if the user has identity, not doing anything here, return redirect to root home. As you can see, if the user doesn't have identity, I extra protect myself. I just send him to home again, because if I don't know the identity, he has nothing to do with the file manager. File manager works only for the known users because the guests doesn't have a common folder. Of course, you can think of something if you like. This is the way I did it. So after that, I'm setting this directory. It's not using this init method in a very elegant way. It's probably I'm gonna find a better way to use it, but right now, just getting the job done. Agile software development. Okay, one member variable. In this member variable, which is accessible to all methods in this class, in this object, I will hold the file manager directory. As I said, this is in my case in data. Here it is. This is the directory of the file manager. So the file manager will know where to create folders, subfolders of the members, where to upload and look at for files. Okay, once this is done, I did this controller very quickly, just before starting this tutorial, and actually I tried to put this code into the constructor, and I think it didn't work for some reason. So that's why I have to do one very tedious job, actually, to copy this init and put it here in each one of the actions I wanna execute. This init, try with the controller a little bit later. Okay, in any case, the most important thing and the goal of this article is just to get the idea. Okay, here I'm just getting the folder where the file manager should store and look at for files. I'm getting this from the configuration array, as you can see, file manager there, checking for identity, and if there is no identity, I'm just redirecting the user of this system to my home root, which is my home page. And I'm setting out this member variable. That's all I have done. Okay, this init, as I said in the constructor, for some reason it didn't work for me, so that's why I'm calling it in each one of the actions. I'm gonna look for a way to do this so I don't have to put this init each time in each one of the modules. I will leave this to you right now in this tutorial. Now I have to look at in the folder of this member. As I said, I'm 54. Let me show you that actually. I'm gonna run the command prompt. I'm using Zend server in this case. I think it's a MySQL bin MySQL minus u root minus p. Use fmi show tables. Select everything from users, and I'm gonna show you 54 is Stoyan. Here we go. This is my user ID Stoyan, and as I said, this is what I decided to use for my subfolder names. If you have more restrictive rules for creating the usernames, you actually can use the usernames here in the data folder, in the file manager folder as a subfolders, or you can come up with something different. As I said, the safest way for me is this, because I will allow the users to use the Cyrillic symbols, characters in their usernames, even Chinese, and I don't want for example to create myself trouble, so that's why I'm creating a simple subfolder names. Okay, now I'm gonna use the standard PHP functions to read the content of this folder. Here we go. Files array. I'm checking if this is a directory. In fact, open directory, and if it's successfully opened and I have a handle, I'm looping there. I create one loopage. It's absolutely trivial, nothing special. This init, as I said, I'm reading the content of the folder and I'm just displaying this. If you go to index.html, I'm doing the same. Here I'm again going through all the files in this folder, subfolder of the member, and I'm checking for files. Right now, of course, I'm not gonna see anything, probably. Yep, because there are no files. But let's do one experiment. Let's just drag some files here. I'm gonna use these two files because I have them on my desktop. Even this one I can put, or this one. Right now I can put whatever I like in the folder, not only images, because as you can see, my file manager doesn't care when it displays the files what type of the file it is. Okay, I don't see anything so far, so let me see. Files, of course, array is empty, so I have to send the actual the actual array, not one empty array. I did this just to make sure in the beginning that my view script works. Here we go. Here we go. Now we have all the files. We can see all the files which are inside of this folder, in this directory. Okay, let me remove that. Delete. As I said, later when we try to upload, if this subfolder doesn't exist, we will create it. Don't worry about that. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that my index action works, and it works, as you can see. Okay, let's continue further. Now let's create the upload action. This tedious thing, this in it. I promise myself I'm gonna find a way to avoid that, of course. That's stupid to do it each time. Probably in this tutorial I'm gonna try that. In any case, so upload is actually the most complicated action, and I will concentrate and spend most of the time for this action, upload. Now we need a form for upload. Let's go to upload first, index controller, upload action, file upload. Okay, we're almost ready, but not yet though, not yet. Okay, first things first is to build a form which will allow us to upload these files. I'm going to my module, my form. I'm gonna copy this form and explain it to you. Form. Zend allows us actually to use a form for uploading the files one by one, or multiple upload. I'm gonna copy the multiple upload and just rename it to upload. As I said, these files I have created previously, so that's why I'm using them. Don't worry, as I said, I'll explain everything. So now I want to use a multiple upload HTML file, multiple upload. As usual, I start by defining the namespace here, file manager, form, Zend input filter. Notice something, I will integrate the filters and the forms in one file, which is upload form. I'm gonna show you where did I take this code. Here it is. Framework Zend.com manual to one blah 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 blah. For short, file uploading. Here you can find the code and the explanation. I'm just taking the code from here to avoid making mistakes and make it a little bit make my life a little bit easier for myself, and I'm just moving to the section which allows me to upload more files. I like when somebody asks me to upload files actually to be able to upload multiple files at once, not repeating this operation. So that's why I'm jumping directly there. I don't want to upload single file right now. All I have to do in the file manager is upload files. I don't have other elements in the form, so that's why I prefer this approach. Here it is, the code, and as you can see in the example, the input filter is integrated is defined, sorry about that, it's defined in the very same file, so that's why I'm following this tutorial. Okay, so I showed to you where this code is coming from, upload form, and I of course modified, because when you upload files they usually end up, in my case when I'm using Windows, is Windows temp folder, and on top of that the uploaded files get renamed. What I want here is just to keep the original names of the files. First, because I'm not using the database to keep the original names and meme types. And second, I want the members to see the original names of the files. When the file gets uploaded to the remote server, I want the file to hold its original name. So that's why I modified this example, which I said I added one member variable where I'm keeping the directory of the member, the folder of the member, and as you can see, as parameters, as a first parameter, I'm sending to the form this file manager directory in the constructor. After that, I'm setting this member variable and I'm creating the elements which are necessary and the input filters. I did one more modification from the example code I showed to you. I'm also adding directly here the button submit, which I definitely need in order to be able to submit the form. Input filter, here you can control the validators. As you can see, with the validators you can determine the file size, in this case not more than 204800 bytes. Everything is in bytes here, so I don't want to allow the members to send huge files. Also the meme type, here it is, and of course you can even control the file, the image size. 100 by 100 pixels in this case is the restriction, but my files are bigger, so that's why I'm not using this validator. And the most important thing here, which I want to attract your attention to, after uploading the file to the temporary folder in the server, I want my files to be moved to the file manager folder, and in particular in the subfolder of the member. In my case this is 54. Okay, randomize true. That means when the file gets uploaded, I want the file name to get randomized, to be randomized. You'll see what I mean by that. Okay, so this is about the form. Let's prepare the things in the controller right now. Upload action. As I said, I'm gonna copy again. And as I said, I did experiments with single and multiple uploads. Also I did experiments with files which get uploaded together with other data. So I'm not gonna show you this. For the purposes of the file manager, all I need is just when I show it to you. So after doing this tedious job, setting up our member variable, what I'm gonna do the next is just check if the member folder exists, and if it doesn't, I'm just gonna create it. And this is the access rights. I want everybody to be able to access this folder 777. Read, write, execute. Everything inside of this folder will be for everyone, will be accessible. Also everyone will be able to write, everyone will be able to execute. And here we go. I'm creating right now, instantiating actually, my form. Of course here on top I have to use the use statement. Multi-upload form, because I renamed my form to upload form, only to upload form, just to simplify. As I said, it is a multiple form for uploading many files. Upload form. And as argument, as a first argument, I'm sending the folder of my member. this there. So that's gonna be documents and settings, FMI, user, the FMI, whatever is in the configuration file. 54, this folder. I'm gonna show it to you. Data, uploads, 54. So this member variable actually holds a string, which is this. So the uploaded file will end up being there. Okay. Let me look at again, upload here. Let me copy this upload, because in Zend Framework 2 is a little bit tedious to do that. Source. To display, I mean each one of the elements. Upload multi. I'm gonna copy the code, paste it in my upload view script, and just change it what I don't need. Upload multi, I'm gonna do it again. Upload, the action would be just upload, not multi. Manager, and that's it. See, I prepared the form. Image file, submit. Notice something very important. The encoding type of the form will be changed. I'm gonna show you this just shortly. Let me close this, just not to clutter. Okay, I show it to you how the form looks like. So I'm gonna close this as well. As I said, you can copy the code from Wingman 007 FMI. Configuration file we don't need as well. ACL global we don't need. Delete I also will close, download as well. Index I already showed it to you. So that's it. I'm gonna keep only the things I need. Right now I'm working on upload action, and I'm showing the upload view script. Okay, so let's see if we actually can display the form right now. And as you can guess, we have to, of course, send the form to the view script. This is how I imagine the things. We're handing the form to this object, and we wanted to deliver to the view script. File upload. Here we go. The form works. Now we have the button, and we have choose file. So I can choose, for example, these two files and upload. Nothing's gonna happen because we didn't create the functionality. As usual, we use the methods to determine if somebody is trying to send something. Let me show you the form though. As I said, the enc type will be changed here in the form. Notice this, enc type multi-part form data. This element itself changes the enc type of the form, so we can upload files. This is what I wanted to attract your attention to. Okay, so now I'm gonna copy again, upload single, upload multi, action. Again, we do the trivial thing here. We get the request object. We check if the request object, we ask the request object if the method was post. If it's post, that means that somebody is trying to do something. Post array merge recursive, request get post to array, request get files to array. If you look at the tutorial which I just showed it to you, you'll see that they recommend, the creators of these elements recommend to use it this way. Form set data post. If the form is valid, data form get data. Okay, I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen now. Let me comment this. We'll get all the files, but the files will be renamed because we set randomize true. Even if you don't say randomize true, the files will be again renamed. Randomize true just makes the file names more random. Okay. Let me show you what happens immediately when we upload the files and play a little bit with this randomize. So probably I should open again the form, but I'm gonna do it just a little bit later. I'll stay on the same page when I upload the files. Okay, that's a very trivial. I will repeat again. We get the request object. We make sure that the request object gives us a post. If we ask is it post, we send the form by a post method. And after that we do what the Zend recommends, post array merge recursive. We merge the post and get files. This is done because the array which contains the information about the files is changed by Zend, is not the native one which comes from PHP. Form set data post, that's very well known. We have to set the data which comes from the post to the form in order to ask the form, are you valid? And after that we get the data. That's all we have to do to get the files uploaded. So let me show you that, and let's open the form again to show you what happens if we randomize and if we don't randomize actually the file names. Source, form. It's quite interesting stuff. It's a technical stuff, technical details which are very interesting. We're telling actually with this filter, it's strange to be a filter, but it is a filter. We're telling the filter just to move after uploading the files, which will end up in Windows temp in my case, because this is the temporary folder of my directory. After the files get there, they will be moved before they get deleted to the folder of my member, which is 54. Let's go there. Let's stick there. See what happens now. Data uploads 54. Okay, let me try to upload something now. I'm gonna upload again these files. Upload. Okay, let's look at if the upload has happened. Here we go. The files have been uploaded. I have chosen to upload these 3 files as far as I remember, but as you can see they have been renamed. Okay, let's remove this, say randomize false, and upload them again. If we say randomize false, we'll see how the system will rename our files, and they will be untouched by Zend. Okay, I'm gonna do the same. Choose 1, 2, 3 files, upload. I'm not redirecting, as you can see, because I stopped redirection. Did I save it? I think so. F5. The files not here for some reason. Try again. 3 files, of course I didn't upload them. Upload, and let's look at 54 again. Look at this. This is how originally the file names will be changed, and the files will end up in the temporary folder of the system, but they will be immediately deleted if I don't move them to a different folder. So that's why I'm moving them to this folder. What I want though is just rename these files to the original names, but that's later. Okay, so this is what the randomize does. From the names given from the system, Zend randomize, when you use this option, randomize, actually renames the files and gives them a little bit longer names, making sure there will be no collisions. Okay, I'm gonna bring back the randomize true. So remember that the files first end up being in a temporary folder of the system. If you don't move them immediately, they will get at one moment deleted and you will lose them. So that's why before your script is over, even if you do this manually, you have to move these files from their temporary location in the temporary folder to another location. This way the operating system is not going to remove them. Actually, the PHP is not going to remove them from this temporary location. And if you say randomize true, the files will get longer names, making sure there will be no collisions, no matter how much files you upload. Okay, choose again the 3 files, holding the control back or shift just to select multiple files. This is what I'm talking when I'm saying multiple files. Before HTML5, it wasn't available to upload more than one file. Upload, and here it is. The randomized files, as you can see, have longer names to avoid the collisions, eventual collisions. Okay, but as I said, I want my files to get renamed. If you actually show this data information, you'll see how it looks. Okay, let me do that for you. Echo pre. Let me display data. Let's upload again the files. Choose files 1, 2, 3. Open, upload. Here we go. Look how Zend actually have changed the information about the files. Actually, you cannot make the difference because I'm not showing the pure PHP information, which is called hold in magic variable called files. Actually, let me display this as well so we'll see the difference. I'm gonna remove these files. Even though I don't remove them, the very same files will be uploaded in the same folder and their names will be different, of course. Okay, I'm choosing again these 3 files, 1, 2, 3, upload. Here we go. This is the magical variable. See how everything is separated. The name of the file, the original name, the type, the temporary name. And look at here how Zend has merged the arrays, this array, and how has been changed. Again, image file, the very same image file, the very same name of the element, but look at the information in the magic variable files and the one which Zend is giving to us. Zend has made it a little bit more convenient for us. The information about each one of the file is on one place. Name, type, and here it's separated. Name, type, blah blah. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. Now, after showing you that, I'm gonna actually explain what's gonna happen further. So what I wanna have is the files to be renamed to their original names. That's why I have created a method called setFileNames, which I think is protected, and I'm sending the data which as you can see is an array, which will allow me to rename the files from their temporary names to their original names. For example, I want to rename the file php176 blah 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 tmp, which doesn't tell me anything, to its original name, which is 1210 blah blah jpeg. Okay, let's do that. This is actually what I'm doing in this method. And after that, of course, I'm redirecting back to the index action where we can see the newly uploaded files. Okay, in order to do that, as I said, I have to have a method, and I didn't show this method here. Here it is. I have a doc block. This is a short description. I don't have a long description. The parameter array data array of arrays return void. This method doesn't return anything. It's protected, as you can see. This is what I'm doing. If you look at here in data, I have one extra element, submit. This comes from the button, so I want to remove it, because after that I will say for each. I will take each one of the elements. I will create one iteration here. Data image file as key file, and this is a standard PHP function for renaming. I'm giving the old name, which is the temporary name given to the file from the system and from PHP, and after that I'm changing to the original file name, and I'm redirecting. That's all I'm doing here in the upload action. Okay, let's see if this works. I have removed my comments and I stopped displaying the arrays, so let me make sure that the folder of the member is empty. I don't want to clutter this with too many files. And let's do the upload action again. Upload. Here we go. This is what the member sees. Clicking here, choosing 3 files and saying upload. I have been redirected, as you can see, to my index page where I can see my 3 newly uploaded files happily uploaded in the subfolder of the member. By the way, this folder is not accessible from the web browser because the web server, the web root of the web server, is only the public folder. You know that. So these files remain somewhere hidden into the file system. Of course, using these tricks, the fact that the files have been renamed, you can create different interpretations. For example, you can keep in the database, in table of the database, all this information which I just showed to you, which comes from the data array, the temporary name, the real name, the meme type. All these things can be kept into the database, but in this case you have to take care of synchronization. For example, if the administrator goes and removes one file, the database will not know that. So you have to delete the file from the file system, you have to delete the file from the database. There is another option as well which I have done, but I'm not gonna show. You can use the binary long objects, blob, in the database, so you can actually hold the entire file into the database, but the database very quickly becomes very big when the members are a lot and when they keep uploading files. So that's why I would prefer actually a hybrid, if you want to call it this way. Keep the information about the file in the database eventually and keep the file separated in the file system. This is one approach, and the third approach is which I'm taking right now here. I'm not using a database at all. I'm just renaming the files to their original names. I think this is the easiest way. Okay. There are many approaches. It's quite interesting topic. Okay. Let's now create the rest of the methods. I will start with download. Now if I hit download, nothing's gonna happen. It's just gonna show me the view script. That's all, the content of the view script. As I said, these files are not accessible from the web browser because the server is not serving this folder. The folder which is seen through our web server, HTTP server, is only public folder, and as you can see, the data folder is hidden somewhere in our file system. It just happens to be in the same folder as our project, but it could be somewhere else. The folder which our HTTP server is not, our daemon is not serving, so there is no access directly to our files, which is a good thing. Our members cannot do something bad. For example, try to upload, for example, executable files and execute them, or try to do executable files, try to put, for example, extension PNG or JPEG to an actually executable file, try to upload and execute. All this kind of stuff happens. It's very dangerous, by the way, allowing the members to upload files, so we have to take security measures. Okay, so let's get back to download action. It's actually extremely simple. We don't even need the view script. I'm gonna show it to you right now. All we have to do is just set up properly the headers and exit the program. Oops, sorry. So I'm gonna copy the entire method and talk a little bit about it. This tedious thing again in it, which actually sets in fact the file manager directory and the member directory. Notice something. I'm sending as a parameter, as IDE, URL encoded, URL decode. I'm sending encoded name of the file, because the name of the file can contain spaces and other characters which are not appropriate to be sent here in the URL. Okay, let's get back to our index view script. I'm going to show you that. Index view script. Get back to our index. Those are tricks. Don't forget to URL encode. Don't forget to URL decode. It's a very simple tutorial, but at the same time it's full with technical details. Encoding, decoding, base64 encoding, which I'm gonna show you just in a minute. Index. Okay, let's look at here. See how I'm creating the URLs. And let's stick with the download. I'm doing this everywhere though. So the file name is absolutely random. It could be on Chinese. I don't know what's gonna happen on Chinese, but in any case I have to prepare the file name with URL encode to be sent as a part of the URL of the address here. So that's why I'm using a standard PHP function URL encode. I'm encoding the file name. When I get the parameters from the root, which is ID, it has been assigned to the variable ID. I'm doing the URL decode. Look at here, for example. Download and pay attention here. See what does the URL encode? Actually, the brackets have been URL encoded. If you use file names with different characters, for example Cyrillic, you'll see what I mean by URL encoding. So that's why, because I'm sending this through the URL, I have to do encoding and decoding. Notice something. Now the file will be offered to be downloaded. And I'm doing this with the help of the headers. I'm setting the proper headers. They are a very powerful tool. Okay, so file, I'm getting the file name here, URL decode. Probably I have to do a little bit refactoring to make the file, the names of the variables a little bit more clear, but I couldn't end up with better file names right now with the variable names. So I'm getting the file, the name of the file, from the root. After that, I'm creating the full path, fully qualified path, if you want to call it this way, to my file, and I'm checking if the file exists. All these things are standard PHP functions. Header is also a standard PHP function. In this case, I'm using the standard PHP, not the Zend tools. With Zend, we also can set the headers, but I'm doing this with the pure PHP, which is even faster. And since I don't have too many things to display, just to allow the user to download the file, that's why I'm using pure PHP. Header, content type application octet stream. This is something very important as well. Content disposition attach file name, base name, file size. I'm cleaning right now the output buffer, flush, and I'm reading the file from the file system, and at the same time I'm putting it into the output stream. And that's enough. After that, exit is enough. Okay, let's try if the download works. Download, and here we go. Here we go. Show in folder. The file has been downloaded. Okay, so even though I don't have direct access from the web browser to the file, as you can see, I'm controlling the access to the file. Okay, let's do the delete action right now. And after that, we will stop and talk about other exotic actions. Not exotic, but very interesting actions. To delete a file, as you can guess, is very simple as well. You just do these tedious jobs to set up the member variable, file manager directory. After that, you get from the input the name of the file, you prepare it. I can even extract this and put it in a separate method, but I'm not gonna do this right now. And all you have to do is just delete it. Just for any case, I'm gonna copy this code. To remove a file, here in PHP use unlink. It's not delete. That was a little bit strange to me when I started working with PHP, but I get used to, so it's something normal for me. And I'm redirecting back to my index action. So it's very simple. Again, I'm getting the file after URL decode, the file name, which I want to manipulate. I take the full path, including the name of the file. I'm creating actually the full path to the file, just to be absolutely explicit. And I say unlink file name. This is the path to my file, and I'm returning. I don't even need this return view model array, but inherently it stays there from the moment when we started to work on the action. Okay, let's see now if that works. I want to delete 2BSD, and at the same time I'm gonna show it in the file system to show that the file has been gone. Module FMI data uploads 54. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this file. Delete. Here we go. It's not there anymore. Of course I can upload it again if I like. Choose this file. What happens if you upload again the same file? Nothing. Actually, the file gets replaced. The old file gets replaced. Let's try again. PHP document. When I rename it, in fact, I'm just replacing the existing file, as you can see, with the new version. It's really convenient. It's very good. So download and delete. View. View is a very, very interesting action. I want to share this with you. Okay. What do I mean by view? I mentioned in the beginning of this tutorial that sometimes I want to display an image in the HTML document, but I don't want to download the image separately from the HTML file itself. This is how it goes. When you ask for a HTML file, the web server gives you the HTML file, which contains only the HTML text. Your browser actually it's trying to build the DOM tree, document object model tree, and looks inside, sees that there is an image which needs to be downloaded, and asks again in a separate round trip to the server, ask the web server, okay, give me this time the image. So the HTML text gets downloaded in one thread. The image, each one of the images get downloaded in another thread. So for example, if you have 100 images in one HTML file, you can end up having 100 and more than 100 threads started by Apache on the server. In such cases, you can use a very interesting trick. You can embed all the images, the code of the images, inside of the HTML code. In this case, we are going to use this just to display the images. Download action, actually I'm going to put this extra actions here under the delete action. Again, the tedious job setting up the folder for the manager. URL decode, again taking the name, file name, contents, no. This is the content of the file. Notice something. This time I'm gonna read the content of the file, but I'm not gonna send it to the standard output. I'm gonna hold it in one variable. If file exists, I did a lot of experiments here. I like to play with that. I'm gonna leave this here. So here we go. I'm preparing one variables which will contain the file bytes and bits. I'm checking if the file exists. If yes, I'm opening the file and I'm reading. Notice this time I'm using the file read, fread. I'm not using like before the read file, which reads and directly outputs in the output stream. This time I'm reading. By the way, this function returns only true or false if the file has been read or not, boolean, and here instead it returns the content of the file. I don't know why in the examples they usually use the contents plural, but this is how it goes, so I'm gonna continue using that just to be compatible, and I'm returning these contents to my view script, and I'm gonna show you the view script. The most interesting part actually is into the view script. This is trivial stuff from line 115. As I said, I'm preparing here the member variable with the path to the file manager, to the folder of my member, getting the name of the file which has been sent to me from the URL with the help of the URL. I'm creating the full path to my file, checking if it exists, and reading the content into one variable. After that, I'm sending the file to the view. Okay, that's cool. Now let's see how I'm gonna display this. I show it to you also. I told you actually where you can take advantage of that view. It's extremely simple but extremely powerful. Look at this now. Echo image source. This protocol is very rarely seen. It can be used in JavaScript as well. Let's say you create on the server, on the client side, the image. There are tools for such thing, bits and bytes, and after that you have to display it. You don't have to turn back to the server to download something because the image doesn't exist there. So what you do is you use this special protocol. Data, you tell the browser the image type. In this case I noticed that it works with PNG, for JPEGs as well. And look at this, base 64 encoding. Base 64. After that you base 64 encode the content of the file. You do this, of course, if you get the file content from the blob, for example, for the database, and you just display the image. As I said, it's very tricky, not tricky, but it's a very nice trick which can allow you to speed up a lot of your HTML pages if you just embed the code inside. Look at now what's gonna happen. Gonna show you how the image will be embedded inside of the HTML code. View. Here we go. Actually this is my picture, but let me show you the code. Look now, a standard HTML code, blah 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 blah, and here we go. Image, and this is base 64 encoded content of the image, as you can see. Those are the tricks used by modern developers, if you want to say it this way. Okay, so that's it. Otherwise, here as a source you just will have the URL which points to the location of the image. That's also possible. And as you can see, this image gets embedded. You can see still the navigation bar here and everything. Okay, what if I want just the image, not to be embedded in the HTML? In this case, I'm gonna use the get method, because as I said, these images are not available directly from the browser. You cannot type something here and expect to get the image. For example, you cannot type this and expect the image to be there miraculously for you. Okay, and after that probably I will show you something else at the end, how actually you can display through a PHP files which are not in your public folder, not in your document root of Apache. Okay, so let's now do the get method. This is very important. This is very interesting actually for me. Okay, view and get image. I'm gonna call this get image. I think this is how I call it. Upload multiple files. Let me find this in my file. Here we go. Public get image action. Again, the trivial stuff. I hope you will appreciate the tricks which I'm showing you, and not pay too much attention to this tedious stuff. Of course, as I said, I'm gonna find a way to do it. Just didn't have time to look at where to put that. This, as I said, again prepares the member variable, file URL decode. Again, I'm taking the file name from the URL. This is not very safe. Probably you'll end up with better methods to send the file name. Somebody could try to do nasty things with that. We have to think very carefully about that. Can be a security breach, so we have to be careful. We'll think about different use cases, but it works perfectly like that. So now, if file exists, file name, header, content type, image, JPEG. Of course, you can change the content type. I didn't have enough time, and the content type you can determine by the extension of the file. Right now, it's not that dangerous, simply because we're allowing our members to deal only with the image files. I noticed that with this header, image JPEG, it works also for PNG files, portable network graphic files. So that's why I'm not changing the content type, the header. Op clean, flush, I'm reading the file name and I'm outputting in the standard stream, which the Apache sends directly to the browser, and I'm exiting. That's it. I'm again using the pure PHP, even though Zend can help us just to build the headers, but I prefer to do this with pure PHP. Okay, so actually we don't even need the view script, because we'll never get that there if the file exists. In the view script probably we'll type something like the file doesn't exist or something, but let me create the view anyway. View image get image. Let me create the view for this action anyway, because for each action, as you know, we have to have a appropriate view. Okay, we don't say much here, as you can see, because hopefully we will never get here. As I said, you can put something clever here. For example, the file you're trying to get is not there. Okay, let's see now if that works. I hope you make the difference between the different actions and the different types of approaches, different type of approaching these files. I'm talking about images because it's safe and it's easier right now and the most used use case actually, but you can easily adopt this file manager to deal with different file types. Now, if we try to upload something different from image, we'll get error. And we control this from our upload form. As you can see here, you just type the meme type of the file you want to be accepted, and you can accept, for example, PDF files, you can accept Word files, any kind of files. For the images, as you can see here, there is a validator which allows us even to check for the size in pixels. We could do, of course, another logic. When the file gets uploaded, it can be resized, it can be reshaped, you can do a lot of things, but I'll leave this to you. Okay, upload. If I try to upload a different type of file, I will get the validation error, as you can see. So that's why I'm using this type of file manager right now. I'm renaming the files, and I'm not keeping the files, the information about the files in the database, and I'm not keeping the files also into the database. Those are all different options which you can use. So the first option is keep everything into the database, the original name, the temporary name, and the file, the content on the file itself into a blob field into the database. Everything goes to the database. The hybrid, you keep the information about the file in the database, and you keep the content of the files actually in the file system. And the third approach is the mine approach. In this case, I'm just renaming the files back to their original names and keep them in the file system without the use of the database at all. I think this is very useful, very convenient way of doing it. And if you do it smarter, if you use regular expressions to check the names of the files, and if you don't allow any type of file names, you will be safe. That can be done easily with Zend. And it's a very simple, lightweight file manager. And I show it to you the 3 different types actually of dealing with files. As you can see, with get, you actually get the content of the file. So I can, for example, in a different window, access the very same file, or I can even use this in my HTML code to access the files. I can say image, open the file, and I will get it. What I want to explain here is that this is the way you get the files which are outside of the document root of Apache. View, this is another type of accessing the file, which is very interesting, by embedding the file directly into the HTML image file and download. You're forcing actually the user of our system to download the file. Delete. Okay, so that leads me to another idea. Let's say we have created a module, but this module contains only assets, images, CSS files, and JavaScript. So this module is into a folder which is not available through Apache. How can we access these assets? Okay, so let me show you this. One possible way is in the folder public to have a simple HTML file which allows you to access the files. It plays the role of the loader. Actually, in our case, the get method plays this role. The get method allows you to access the files, but for each one of the files, for each one asset, you have to bring the entire Zend MVC machinery just to get one single file. So that's why it's more convenient actually if in your public folder you have something like a file loader, which allows you to access assets which are outside of your web root. Okay, so I'm gonna put this here and you can find it in the repository when I finish with this tutorial. Let me show you the loader. Okay, this is what I have done. First, I determine where is the folder with my assets. In this case, because this file is linked to this tutorial, I'm gonna use the images from the folder of the user. Right? I want, for example, to show these images to someone even though he is not logged in. I want to make them publicly available. So publicly available, I make only this loader PHP. This file is publicly available. Let me use another browser. I'm not logged in there. I'm gonna use Firefox to show you the concept. And probably you will understand and use these tricks in your practice. Okay, so there is no way for me right now, there is no way for me to access the files. Right now, of course, I'm talking about the case when you want to show these assets to the guests on your system. That's why here in my loader I'm giving the path to one of the folders of the members. Let's say I want this folder to be publicly available, the resources, the assets there to be publicly available. As you can see here, I'm using a standard magic variable get to get the variable file which comes from the URL. I'm assembling actually the full path to the asset. After that, by the extension, I'm determining the meme type, so it could be CSS, JavaScript, and JPEG. Here I determine which type of files I'm gonna serve, and after that I'm preparing the browser, I'm preparing the header with proper meme type, and I'm reading and sending the file back to the browser of the member, of the user. Okay, let me show you that. Of course, if you leave such file in your public folder, this is a door to access assets which are not otherwise publicly available, which are outside of your document root of the HTTP server. Okay, as you can see, if I don't have this file, there is no way for me to access the files in the data in this folder. Data uploads 54, for example. There is no way for me to access these files. But if I have such file and it's properly set up, the path is properly set up, here I determine which actually folder will serve its assets, then it's possible for me. I'm gonna say loader, and this has nothing to do with Zend, of course, apart of the fact that it's a part of the Zend Framework 2 tutorial. And I will say file, and because see, I point directly to the folder of the member, I can mention directly the file which I need to see here. This is one possible way to create our team modules. Look at this. Now it's available. This asset is available. In other words, in the HTML, I'm gonna demonstrate this. In the HTML somewhere you have image. So what you say is source equals, and notice this, now you give this URL here. Of course, can be relative as well. You can remove this, but let me leave it like that. Image, and you continue. So this is gonna work this way. In other words, not publicly available assets are made available by the use of this loader PHP, or such system like our get action here. If you look at our get action, you will notice that it's get image action. It's exactly the same, but with our get action here, it's not possible because the get action is not publicly available. The entire action is not publicly available because of the ACL. We control the access through ACL. If we're so restrictive and we don't care about the performance, if there are not that many concurrent users of our system, we can use our get action here to access the files. So we could be writing something like that here. And we still will be able to access this image if we are members of this system. So in more restrictive systems, we can control even the access to the assets with such a action which we have created, get image. By controlling the access to get image. If we say get image is publicly available in the ACL, then the image will be accessible. But notice the difference. Here we just invoke a simple PHP file, while here we're calling and bringing up, waking up the entire monster Zend framework MVC machinery, which is very difficult for the computer, of course. It's more difficult. And here is just simple. So I'm throwing ideas about how can we create a module which eventually is into the vendor folder, which contains only assets, and we can make these assets publicly available. Of course, in the Linux systems, you just can put a symbolic link and tell Apache to follow the symbolic links. Let's say you have a theme module which is installed in vendor using the composer. All you have to do in the Linux machines, you just create one symbolic link in the public folder and you're done. The similar thing can be done on Windows, but this is another option. Actually, we create a gateway which allows us to access assets which are not otherwise publicly available. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You learn interesting things and approaches. You can build your own file manager right now, very simple file manager. And you will find the file manager in our Git repository, GitHub cool CSN, where you can find actually much more cool modules for Zend Framework 2. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and as I said, hopefully you enjoyed. See you soon.